I'm not convinced I know how to read. I've just memorized a lot of words.
The first rule of Fight Club is, you do not talk about Fight Club.
True. All life ends in death, which we, as a species, are cursed with knowing, resulting in something. Again, this is really not my field.
Using his vast knowledge of history and politics, we start our day off right with motivational speaker Richard Battle.
Love having him on the program. Mr. Battle, how you doing today, my friend?
Good morning, Al. Thanks for having us bat lead off, and we're trying to stay warm this morning.
I do not want to hear you whine. Oh my God! For folks who don't know, he lives down in Texas, and the grapefruits are chilly this morning. I suppose. Good. Yeah, I got 10 inches of snow outside my house. I think felt like temperature 8 below this morning, and you're concerned. It's in the mid 40s for you for a low. We can't handle this whining.
We're not as tough as you are.
Well, it's because you don't have to be, and I don't want to be tough no more. I give up tough. I want to be done being tough. I absolutely love this year for you. I mean, we're the 250th anniversary of our nation, so a lot of this stuff that you've squirreled away in your head as far as the history of the U.S. is going to be out there and needed to be known, and I'm glad to have you on the program. I don't remember if it's because something I remember as a child, or we talked about this maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but that's why I know about it. I can't remember because I'm slipping a little upstairs. You want to talk about the first casualty shot, right, in the American Revolution. And I'm
yes, and it's not the shot heard around the world.
No, see, that's why it's like what I don't think this has to be a battle thing because I wouldn't have known it. Well, and then I started, okay, wait a minute, because I read AmeriCANS, Who Made America, the 18th Century Birth of the Republic, and I'm like, oh, I bet you that's where I'm remembering it. I have no doubt they did not teach me this in high school history class, so I had to have got it. It's on page 107, by the way, of this great book, and I pulled it out and said, that's where I remembered. It's either that or you and I talked about this 10 years ago. Do you know?
Well, I think it's both, but
okay.
Most of us...
That it isn't deja vu going on in my head. Okay.
We're going to celebrate the 250th birthday of the country this year, but that's the date of the Declaration of Independence, and what most of us either forgot or don't know is that the run-up to that date, there was so much that happened starting in 1765 with the Stamp Act and the protest and everything. So for 11 years before the Declaration of Independence, there was a run-up toward independence. And so that means those dates are even older than 250 years. And the first person that was killed happened 6 years before the Declaration of Independence. And he was an 11-year-old boy of all things. And that's kind of what we wanted to highlight, that patriot, because of his example.
See, that's what people are going, 11-year-old boy, and most folks don't know this. That's why you get the battle books. Yeah, you're going to find about Washington, you're going to find stuff you don't know, but you're going to read about guys like Christopher, give up his name real quick, that you would never have known about. And that's why, and I had marked in my book, what do they call it? What do they call that when you pig-eared? No. What do you do when you
dog-eared?
Dog-eared, thank you very much. No, it wasn't pig. When you dog-ear a page, it was dog-eared because I'm like, this cannot be true, but it is. You're going to find it in the Americans Who Made America, 18th Century Birth of the Republic. This kid was amazing. Tell us the story.
Well, he was 11 years old, and by 1770, we had the Sons of Liberty, and they were the patriots that were already pushing for better treatment from England for the colonies. And they had already divided in Boston. You had loyalists and you had patriots. And so one of the loyalists there had imported some material and goods from England to sell. And the patriots were upset because they wanted everyone to buy the goods that were American made and locally made. Imagine that.
Are we talking about that 250 years later? What the heck? That's
same
the same thing.
And so they had a protest. And the customs officer named Richardson, they chased him into a house where he was hiding from them, and they were protesting this event. And he fired a warning shot, but he was so bad at firing a warning shot, he shot and hit Christopher Sider, 11-year-old boy. He was one of the Liberty boys, and killed him right there in February 1770. And so that was really the first shot fired and the first fatality of the war. And that happened 2 weeks before something that more people will know about, which was the Boston Massacre, which was where 5 Americans were killed.
Yep.
Christopher and those 5 Americans were all buried in a common grave in Boston.
This Richardson guy, the British guy, was like Barney Fife or something. He wants to shoot a warning shot and he hits an 11-year-old kid. What is that? I mean,
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Back then, everybody
old...
used guns. It's not like guns were, you had to have one. He was a British officer. That's just crazy.
Well,
do we
crazy,
really believe it was an accident?
But
is my point.
like the old joke about the guy firing a warning shot in somebody's chest. So,
okay.
But for Christopher, unfortunately, it wasn't a joke, and it inflamed people in Boston, which led to the protest that created the Boston Massacre 2 weeks later.
Well, when this happens, when a British officer, this is so wild to me. So we talked about the Boston Tea Party, right? Put a tax on tea and we all get upset. Name something we're not taxed on today and we just kind of take it. But that being said, this kid gets shot, 11-year-old for heaven's sake. What did the townspeople, what happened then? Was there a tremendous uprising? They burned down the city? What happened when they shot the kid? Do you know?
Well, unlike the city when they win the NBA championship, they were too smart to burn the town down.
All right.
They didn't have the money to rebuild it. but it did inflame them. And like I say, 2 weeks later, you had the huge confrontation in the Boston Massacre where 5 Americans were not executed, but murdered right there in Boston.
Didn't I read like a massive number of people went to this kid's funeral? Didn't I read? I mean, something's sticking in my head.
It was held under the Liberty Tree, which was a famous tree there in Boston as well. And he was buried at the cemetery where so many of the patriots are, and where later the 5 people killed, including an African American, were killed at the Boston Massacre, were all buried in that common grave.
Okay. Christopher Snyder, we don't know. How is it we don't know this kid's name? Was it an unmarked grave? Is it you can't read the writing anymore? How do we not necessarily actually know his last name?
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because records at that time, I don't think he was so young. He had not had any legal documents, evidently. They didn't do birth certificates back then. We don't know his birthday either. And as you know, sometimes we'll talk about some of these people around their birthday. Yeah. So without having a birthday, I selected today to talk about him.
Oh, no, I think this
highlight him.
It's an amazing story that at 11 years old, this kid is part of this, Patriots party saying, hey, stop mucking with us. The fact he gets accidentally shot by a Brit. That's why I say accidentally shot. That seems so wild to me that he was accidentally shot that way. Maybe that's just the way history's got to work. Or like you say, terrible shot right to the heart. It's just wild to me. And then literally a week later, 5 more people are shot. It seemed to me that the British were deciding it's time to stamp this down now.
Well, I don't know if he was accidentally shot or not, but that's what I think Richardson said to try to weasel out of accountability.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to go to break. We'll find out what happens after that, right after this, with Richard Battle. Be sure to pick up the book. You'll love it. AmeriCANS, Who Made America. He was one of the 40-ish stories in there that I had never heard about before I got the book. We'll be back after this.
This season.
When the stakes are high at the Minnesota Capitol, you need more than a lobbyist, you need a partner. At Momentum Advocacy, we bring nearly 90 years of combined experience in government relations, public affairs, and strategic communications. From nonprofits to national corporations, we help organizations navigate Minnesota's political landscape with integrity, insight, and results. Whether you need legislative champions or headlines, Momentum Advocacy delivers. For more, visit momentum-advocacy.com. Momentum Advocacy, your friends at the Capitol.
The Al Travis Show, the last place you can go and hear all sides. Respectful, thoughtful, and grateful.
If you're just joining us, we got us Richard Battle on the program, actually talking about one of the characters in the Americans who made America, 18th century birth of the Republic. He is Christopher Snyder, we're figuring that out. And basically, 11-year-old kid, he was part of the Patriots movement early on, the Sons of Liberty. And he got shot by a British customs officer, Ebenezer Richardson. And 5 days later, which I find, was this in the same, was all in Boston, I guess. The other 5 folks, the Boston Massacre, which you know about, and then all of them were buried in the same grave, is what you're telling me. So they hung on. I mean, the kid just hadn't been buried yet, and that happened. You know what I'm saying? They didn't know the Boston Massacre was going to happen. Seems strange to me.
No, well, I'm not sure. And with it being February in Boston, maybe the ground was frozen.
Good point.
I'm not sure, but they're all buried together.
All right. So this all happens, and this, of course, is all lead up to the Boston Tea Party. But the Tea Party wasn't that late December?
Well, that was December of 1773, and we may discuss it in the future.
Oh, I'm sure we will. But this had a lot to do with that, right? People that were a part of this were quite angry. They were not happy with what was going on. This had to help build on that, right?
Well, what's interesting is the Patriot movement was really centered in Boston, but as it spread and it spread into Virginia and the other colonies and everything, so much of it that we've learned about in the action was Boston centered, and we don't think much about Boston being as patriotic a city today as it was back then.
What happened with the guy who did the shooting? Did nothing happen? Was it just considered an accident?
He was tried and convicted, and he served time, but it wasn't as much time as people wanted. And once he got out of jail, guess what he did? He, to use a technical term, he skedaddled back to England, never to return again.
Probably a good choice by that young man. All right. So what else do we know? Anything else about this child or his family? What happened?
Well, I think we ought to look at this and what can we learn about this to help our lives today and help our children's and grandchildren's lives. And to me, the first lesson is it's never too soon to pursue our dreams or exercise our beliefs. And so as parents are training their children and giving them the values to build their character and everything, we see it with some kids today, but we build that character from the home. And that's part of the reason we're doing this series is to help parents and grandparents when they're raising their kids to have these stories they're not getting in school.
Well, yeah, here's an 11-year-old child that we know about because of his courage, his ability to stand up for what he believes in. We're talking about 250 some years later.
Well, and we don't ever know what we can accomplish if we don't act. Now, did he live to see the impact of his life? I mean, his life's impacting us today, 260 years later. No, he didn't. But in the eternal scheme of things, he is still impacting those who love the country and are patriots.
And the folks that knew him probably saw some immediate reaction. The town, the 1,000 people show up, you know, the other 5 that he was buried with and the Boston Massacre and how that started a movement, if you will. They probably had some idea. But again, I don't think anybody's talked about him until you wrote about him in your book. I had no idea. This is not something we learned in school.
No, but I learned it in my research for this volume because I was looking for people with that AmeriCAN spirit who pursued their dreams or saw a need and pitched in to help and what they accomplished either materially or spiritually.
Well, let's talk through that quick. I believe it all started with the book Made in America by AmeriCANS, not AmeriCANS. Great volume. Am I right? And then you thought, you know history. There's those that have that spirit, and then you kickstarted the volumes, right?
Well, there's a series. That's a series of essays on the AmeriCAN spirit about learning it, leading with it, and leaving a legacy with the AmeriCAN spirit. We had some of the people in there, and I'm going to abbreviate the story, but then the inspiration came to highlight the individuals. Who, and it's not all the most famous people, some are, but I'm looking for that angle that may not have even been talked about, that AmeriCAN spirit that they used to succeed in their life, and use that to inspire us and others to do the same thing.
So you're a known historian, and you decide you're going to delve into this. And again, back to I keep saying this. Half the book, AmeriCANS, Who Made America, 18th Century Birth of the Republic, half those folks you're going to say, oh, heard of him, heard of that guy, heard of this gal. Fine. The other half, you're like, ooh, Christopher, what? What'd he do? And you'll be stunned, and then you kind of see how it all fits together. Like Billy Lee was another one I don't think I'd ever heard of. There are people in this you want to read about, and you make them in short little chapters. It's not like this is the hardest book to read. This is set up for families. This is set up that you get this book, grandmas and grandpas, mom and dads, put it on your shelf so your kids know what's going on. And that started this whole thing, and then you went to the next one, of course. I'm not giving away a secret. The next one was the 19th century, Growth, Division, and Reunification. More of the same, half half probably not. And I can't think of any of your caliber steps in the 19th century. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not trying to give up any. You right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you're correct, and we want it to where upper middle school and above can read it.
Yeah.
Each chapter is kind of like an op-ed column. It's like a scouting report on an athlete, if you will. Yes. I have quotations from each individual. In this volume, there's 250 quotations. There's 350 in the next. And I do that so that the reader can hear the person in their own voice. And those quotations are so inspirational and still alive today, and will inspire people to love our country even more than they may today.
People talked cooler back then, too. They just, short and sweet, and you knew what they meant. All right, so how do I get them? Let's be on the last minute. How do I pick up those books? This is a fantastic stocking stuffer. You got more than 4 in your family. Buy a book for each one of the stockings, put it together, and put it on your shelf. Make it a collection. How do we do that, Mr. Battle?
Well, my website is richardbattle.com. All the books are there. All are signed. If you'd like them inscribed and personalized, we're happy to do that. Email me, richard@richardbattle.com after you order. No. Everything's on Amazon. If you look under Richard V. Battle, you'll find my author page, including 11 books in Kindle and 8 in audio versions.
Love it. We'll get you back here next week, my friend.
Absolutely.
All right.
God bless America.
Braver Angels, Minnesota.